Hey guys, this is Kendall Keating. I'm one of the co-founders of Calor Health and Wellness. Today we're going to be walking through the assembly of one of our XL black cedar cabin saunas. There are several differences between the barrel and the cabin. I'm going to go over those with you as we do the step-by-step. This will help make sure that your day goes easy and smooth and this thing's put together right.
Please read all instructions prior to assembly and use. By assembling this sauna, the customer agrees to hold Calor Health and Wellness Incorporated, its dealers and installers harmless from liability resulting from improper installation, maintenance, or repair. For full documentation, visit calorhealthandwellness.com.
Once you have your pad completed, nice and level, you can lay your cradles out in the area that it's going to technically be in. Once you get that out, you're going to take your center stave. The center stave is the double male. You'll see it's different on this end. All your other staves are going to have a female end and a male end. This one has two males. You can lay that across, and by using that, you'll make sure that you're level. Now that we're good there, the next step we're going to do is we're going to measure and find the exact center of our cradles. Once we get that, we'll mark those out and we'll start putting the floor together. So I'm going to find the center of this. It is 42 5/8 as my overall length is 85 1/2. I'll mark the center. You're then going to get the width of your center stave. In this case, it's 3 inches. So I'm going to go 1.5 inches from either side. 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches. This will be where your center cradle sits. Going to repeat the same steps on the back cradle. Again, get your overall length. They should be all the same, but it's always nice to confirm. So again, 85 1/4. So I'm going to be at 42 5/8. And again, you have a 3-inch stave, so you're going 1.5 inches on either side of that mark. And finally, repeat it with the center. That way you'll be able to get your center reference. Same thing, 85 1/4. 42 5/8, 1.5 inches to either side. Perfect. So now you have all your reference points to know where that center stave is going to be. Again, the double male. Once you get this, you can start to loosely lay out. The next step will be you want a 4-inch overhang from the side of your outside cradle to the end of your stave. Line that up on those 3 marks, please. So now that I have this centered on the cradle, I'm going 4 inches from the ends to the end of my stave, and that is where this one's going to go. So for the next step, now that we have this placed exactly where we need it, you're going to go in your bag of hardware. You're going to use the 2.5-inch screws that we've provided. You're going to utilize a drill bit that is slightly smaller than the diameter of the actual screw, and you're going to put 1 pre-drill hole. Then you're going to take that screw and sink it down. We'll be coming back to put a second screw in later, but for now you leave 1 so you can still adjust the rest. We're going to repeat those steps on the back one. So again, I'm going off the marks I've already laid out, so I know this is directly in the center of my cradle. I'm going to measure my 4 inches to the end. Now that I have that set, same thing, I'm pre-drilling. And then sinking 1 screw. So the next step, now that you have these 2 are assembled, we're going to measure distance between the front and the back cradle. 86 3/4, 86 1/2. So I'm tapping this side out 1/8 of an inch to split the difference. Go back to this side. So I'm 86 1/2 on either side. So now that you have those pretty much square, we're going to do what's called cross squaring. So my partner is going to stay on that end. We're going to measure corner to corner. I'm at 121 inches and 15/16. He's gonna go opposite corner, and I'm exactly the same. What happens in a cross square, it gives you a true square. These could be the same distance, but if it's off a little bit and you don't have a true square, that will mess you up directly from the beginning. So you wanna make sure that these are square. So now that I know they are, I'm gonna go ahead and sink a second screw into each, so it won't allow them to move. When I'm doing the screws for the second one, you'll notice I like to do them on a 45-degree angle. That way, again, it doesn't allow it to twist as you're making these. Any little tip that you can to make your life easier in the assembly is going to be way better for the long run. So now that we have that done, I'm just going to measure the center stave, get it exactly in the center both ways, and we'll go ahead and put one in the center as well. 43 and a quarter. 43 and a quarter. And on this one, I'm 40 and a half, so I got to move this way roughly 1.5 inches. One of the tools we recommend for the job is a white mallet. Specifically go with white. The black will mark up your wood as you're hitting it, so that's why we recommend the white. So with this, again, I have my marks for the center already, so I want to be sure I'm not off this way. A couple different ways to do this. My personal favorite is you can screw now and start to work your way out. I usually leave this unscrewed directly at the start. And once I start laying my floor, it will force that center one into where it needs to be. And that will help you, save you from measuring. Okay, so we can start bringing some staves over, guys. We'll do 2 at a time. So now that we've done all the pre-measuring on the center one, again, the front and the back are square. The center one will come along as we start to lay the floor. We've taken 2 of our cradles, or sorry, 2 of our staves. These ones, as again, you'll notice the middle one was the double male. These ones have the female end and the male end. We'll start to work our way out on the floor. With these ones, I only put 1 screw in as they'll start to help it not move, but they don't need the double like the center one does. And the biggest part of putting in the staves is your dado. The dado is the groove that's been cut out of these staves. That's where your wall is gonna sit. You need to make sure that it's square as you go through. A little bit of overlap will make it very hard to put the walls in. So just really be sure that these dados are correctly square. Same thing, you're pre-drilling as you do this, but again, just 1. When you're sinking these screws as well, you're just sinking past the surface. You don't need to put it in a 1/2 inch. You just want it flat, but don't let it extend up as these are stainless screws, so they have longevity to them, but they will get hot when you're in the sauna, so you don't want any of the screw heads exposed. It's nice to have your mallet on you for these too. You can give everything a tap as you're going to make sure it's nice and square as well as tight. We'll move to the back and do the same thing. I had my partner back here ensuring that these dados were square as well, so we know that those are good to go. So again, I'm pre-drilling. Again, making sure it's nice and tight. And then you're gonna repeat this exact same process all the way out to when it starts to curve. Just repeat, repeat, repeat. I recommend only doing 2 at a time. That way you don't get too far off on one side. So I'm jumping back and forth to make sure everything's square. So now that you have the floor laid out, everything is square, all the outsides are now drilled. Now we can go back and attack that center. We're just gonna follow the line and we'll be able to pre-drill every single one of them. And because they're tight on the ends, you don't have to actually squeeze them in the middle. This is the quickest way. That's why I referenced earlier not to screw anything, because now we'll go ahead and do them all at once. Now that they're all pre-drilled, you can go ahead and put screws in each. We now have the floor down. As you've noticed from the get-go, we have 2 directly in the center. Everything else just has 1 after that. We now have the center. So what's gonna happen next is we're gonna go ahead and find the center of this, which will be the very middle of your double male. We'll make a mark there, mark in the back. We'll have a glass front on this unit. So we're gonna find the center of that, line it up, and we'll find the center of the back wall and line that up, and we'll get the center up. Okay guys, glass door and the square back part. So now I have my glass front. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead, find the direct center of it. In this case, I'm 29.5 inches. So I'll go to the center of that at 14.75. I'm gonna make a small mark. And again, your center stave, you're gonna make a small mark, the exact center of that. So now, when we put this in, I just need to line those 2 marks on and I know I'm gonna be directly square. One pro tip as you go to place your front and your back doors, you wanna make sure that you're blowing all of the wood chips that you've got from pre-drilling. Make sure those are gone from your dados, as it might allow it to sit one way or the other, and you don't want that to happen. So I'll get my partner now to place the door very close and utilize your white mallet to get it in square. Once you have that one, you continue holding it. We'll get the center put in. Again, the reason you want your dados lined up as you're putting, you can see how easy this slid in. If you're getting a little bit of it not wanting to sit down, feel free to tap the top, but as long as your dados are square, you shouldn't have to worry about that. What you'll do now that we have both sides standing is we're gonna take one of the extra staves that we'll use on the roof later. And utilizing the dados on these ones, we're gonna hold the top and the back with this. Good. Now that will hold these upright as you start to put the rest of the walls on. So with these walls, you're actually gonna utilize the shorter screws. This is 1.5 inch cedar. These are slightly shorter than that, so you won't go all the way through the wall. So all I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna be tapping that in to close the gap on it. And then I'm gonna sink 4 of these smaller screws into the 4 available holes that are already pre-drilled for you. So now that I have those 4 screws in, that gap's nice and tight, I'm gonna repeat the same process on the other side. So again, my gap's now nice and tight. I'm just gonna sink those same 4 screws. So with this one, again, there's a female side and there's a male side. You can't mess these up. It will only fit one way. And again, what I'm doing is I'm just hammering it in to close the gap. Small pro tip on this one, doesn't happen every time, but if your wall is starting to try to slide whenever you're trying to tap it in, you can put a small drill, just put 1 screw to hold it. Once I get that side in, I'm gonna remove my screw again. Again, as you can see, I've just closed that gap. Now I'm gonna screw the 2 back. So now that we have the front and the back walls up, we're gonna continue up with our staves up the wall. These ones, as they start to bend, you don't actually have to screw every one. I usually screw every second. And you can still screw it down to the cradle until the cradle stops. After that, you're gonna be screwing from where the dado is. You're gonna screw it directly into the wall. Okay guys, so now as I'm coming up the wall, you can see I'm now missing the cradle. So now instead of screwing from down to the cradle, I'm going to be screwing directly through the board in the dado area and hitting this as where I'm going to be sinking it. On these ones, I recommend pre-drilling as well. So as you're doing these, you just want to make sure that they're nice and tight to the wall. You can load a couple on at the time like we just did, pre-drill them all and then screw them all. You're gonna keep screwing every single one up until roughly this height. That's because the benches on the inside are gonna utilize this for their strength. So again, pre-drilling, but as I'm putting them in, make sure they're nice and tight to the wall. Okay guys, so you can see the height that we're to now. Coming from the cradle, we're about 8 up. Every one of them has been screwed up to this point. You can keep going if you want and get to the roof. We personally like to do the benches next. That way you're not bringing everything through the actual door itself. Now we have our benches, we have our stands that we're gonna put in. The benches already have lighting attached. You'll see that there's a wired end on one side. Those will go towards your back wall, as that's where your electrical hookups will be. So just make sure that these are facing out, so they're gonna be touching the back of your legs, and the wire should be on the back. There's a left side and a right side. I have the stands here. You'll notice they look very similar, but if you put them up next to each other, there's one side that is actually a little bit shorter, and it's a little bit longer. That shorter end should be up because you want the length to be on the bottom cross members of your bench to give you a bit more support. So this one will actually sit this way. So now they're all even. Okay, so now that we know that this is the longer edge, we have it in, it's in place, it's gonna be touching this back wall. You're gonna put a screw down here, and you're gonna put a screw there. The reference point for where these actually sit is gonna be all the cross members underneath your bench. You're gonna have them sitting on those. So this is another 2.5 inch screw, so the longer screws that we've had, that's what you're gonna be utilizing. So the screw's gonna go one in there, and you're gonna put one in there. These ones you don't have to sink too far, because if you do go all the way, they will pop up the side. You don't want that. So just sink them enough so that they're sitting and they're actually biting into the material behind. As you can see, that's now attached. So we'll go ahead and we'll do the other far side. So again, placement is where this is laying flat and that is also laying flat. Drop the screw in. Sink it enough to hold. So now that we have those in, we can actually lay the bench down on top of our cross members. And now we can go underneath and we put the other two in to hold. As I'm putting these in, I'm just making sure that I'm lined up with the cross members that are already built into the benches. With the XL model, it comes with 4 of these leg braces. We usually put one directly in the middle, 2 out towards the glass, and then the one on the back wall. There's one missing from here. That's because with the heater on the back, people are more aligned to sit on the front, and there's a split usually on the XLs up on top of the bench. This will actually allow that to be supported. What I will do now is I'm gonna take some of the shorter screws. I'm pre-drilling. Make sure you're going between the bench. You do not want the screw to be on the bench. There's the gap in the middle. Put through there. Utilize another 2.5 inch screw. These are the bigger ones in the pack. And you're gonna sink that down in between the benches. So now that leg can't go anywhere. Just be cautious as you're doing this one, as you're gonna be drilling close to the glass. You obviously don't want the drill bit going through it. So just take your time. And remember that your electrical cord is on this side, so before you start drilling in, just be sure your pigtail is out of the way. That way you're not catching any of your electrical. Something I tend to do with the back wall is I'll actually angle this screw. So instead of going directly down, I'm actually gonna catch the back wall as well, just for some strength. So now your bench, securely mounted, can't go anywhere. And we're going to repeat the process on the other side. Once you have the 2 far sides in, we'll set the bench in. Again, remembering that the lights are gonna be on the outside, closest to your legs, and the pigtail where it's gonna plug into electrical is gonna be on your back wall. And again, same as before, I'm gonna go under. I'm gonna make sure I'm hitting the cross braces. One directly in the center, one out towards the far side. There's gonna be one missing. That's for the heater. So now that we have the benches fully installed, these are now non-movable. All the strength members are here. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna continue on, build the rest of the outside skin using the staves. The backrest as well as the under will go on last, as those parts need to be attached to electrical, so leaving them off for now is the best play. So again, as we're going up the wall, after we pass the height that we mentioned earlier, we're only screwing every second one on the way up. The reason we do this is actually so that as the sauna heats, it expands, and as it cools, it contracts. So we don't want everyone to be screwed because that will cause splitting in the wood. So there's a reason for leaving every second one unscrewed. So now we're gonna start doing the roof. The middle piece that has been holding the whole time, this is when we can start to utilize that. So we'll take it off, put it on the side. You're gonna come over both sides. Again, you're screwing every second one. Make sure to use your white hammer on these corners to make sure that they're not lifting out. These are the only spot that as you're drilling and hammering, they'll wanna pop out on you. Just make sure everything's nice and tight. Now that we're up and around the corners, we can start laying these in. Again, they're all gonna sit flat. So with these, I usually lay a couple in on either side. You can continue to drill every second one. Okay, so we're at the end now, as you can see. The roof's getting very tight. This is where you're gonna start to utilize the two that are gonna be your ends. So this is technically a double female. We split them in half. It makes it a lot easier to get these end pieces in. We also send different size shims that will go from anywhere between like 1/8 of an inch all the way up to 3/8 of an inch. So whenever you get to the top, you might have to use a couple different patterns in order to make it work. But what we do is we build these in our facilities first. So when they go to you, we know that they do fit, but we want to make sure that you have lots of extra just in case it expands in the future. So play a little bit of a puzzle here and see which one fits the best. So at this point, it's easiest to lift the female end up so it's at an angle. You can push the other part and then they will slide together. And after a little bit of forcing around, you should be able to get this to fit in tight. Okay guys, so we have our shims in now. You can see that we've used both of our female with the flat side. Now that those are all in, again, we haven't screwed a lot of the second ones. That's gonna allow this to expand and contract as it's heating. If you put these on and there's a small gap right from the get-go, that is no problem at all. Most of ours come with roofs. That's an add-on, but people do recommend it. So as you guys get these close, we can go ahead and we can start finishing up the inside. And then once we come around to put the gables on the outside, we'll be able to reposition these to make sure everything looks nice and tight. So as we're about to start working on the inside of the sauna, one of the things that I like to do is put the handle on now. That way it just makes it easier for access. Your black handle is gonna go on the exterior of the door. As you can see, we have 2 through bolts. So all you're gonna do, unscrew these. They're gonna pop through. It's gonna go on and then tighten with the Phillips on the back. So now we're gonna put the back door handle on. All I'm doing here, I'm measuring between these 2 holes. They're roughly 11.5 inches. So I'm gonna go at 5 3/4, and that's where I'm gonna drill my hole. On this side, we're moving back to the 1.5 inch screws. That way you're not poking through the door. Pro tip for this one is you drill your first hole. Once you get that added on, you can then level your door handle, putting the screw just far enough through so it pokes out and protrudes on the other side. That way I can guide it into the hole that I just pre-drilled. Nice and snug, but make sure you don't split it. I can do the same to the other side after I get it squared. Again, you are drilling close to glass here, so just be careful as not to poke into the glass with your drill bits. Make it nice and taut. Now that's your center. Okay guys, so now we're gonna install the backrests. Same as before with the benches, there are lights already wired into this. With that, your pigtails are gonna be on the back wall as well. So I have my pigtails back here, close to the back wall. For height reference, these are to hide wires. So these are gonna be below this. So you can use that for your reference. As long as it's hiding, everything's good. You know that that one's good to go at that height. Once I have it screwed here, I will level the other side. So again, on these ones, we're using the 1.5 inch screws, and as always, be aware of where your pigtails are, your wires. You don't want to be touching those when you screw it in. I recommend leaving the screw loose as well, because what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to wire those on at the end. So you wanna be able to make sure you can get up in there. Now there's 2 ways to level this. You can take your level, put it on the top if your pad is level. The other way To measure to your bench, I have 9 1/4 here. And I have to come up 1/4 inch. Yep, right there. On this side, you're free to screw the whole thing, as you won't need to move this end. So on this side, I'm using my height reference from the other side, going 9 1/4 again to make sure both sides are exactly the same. I'll do the same thing, put one screw in loosely so I can still move this end, and just being aware where my electrical pigtails are. So this is the electrical box that we utilize. These are already pre-wired. They come pre-wired for all of the lighting that we've now installed in our benches. On these, you'll notice that one has an end with 2 hooks. The other one has an end with 1 hook. This one with the single is for the bottom of your bench. The one with 2 is for your backrest, as there are 2 plugs on it. You'll also notice when you stretch these out, one of them is short, one of them is very long. The long ones, I'm gonna put my electrical box under what would be your passenger side of your sauna. I'm gonna put it under there. The long one will go across the floor, plug into there. The short ones will plug into the side that it's on. Pigtail from under the benches for the lighting. This is my other end. They literally just clip together. You'll see that they can only go one way. And once they're clipped, that's now connected. I'm gonna do the same now. I've ran this wire up behind the bench. So I'm gonna now connect that to the 2 clips for the backrest. So like I said, both my pigtails are there. Sometimes it's easier to connect these before you put it on the wall. It's completely up to you. Okay, so now I have all the wires connected. As you can see, the backrests, both benches are now connected. So before I put all the wire hiding on, as well as the under bench, I'm just gonna test this. That's all you're gonna do. So you're gonna plug them in. We have the controller. With that controller, you can change the lights. As you can see, as I'm moving my finger, the lights are changing on the wall. Lots of different modes you can choose from. Choose from the brightness. You can turn it way down, you can turn it way up. Completely up to you. Now that you've confirmed all lights are working, we can go ahead and start hiding some wires. And for the wire hiding, we're just using the 1.5" screws to make sure that we're not poking out through the wall. As you can see where I've already ran my wire, all I'm doing here is putting it over to hide. Once I have it in place, go ahead and screw it down. So with these, you just want to make sure that they're nice and tight. The screw holes will line up with where your leg stands are. And then you're just going to pop screws in the pre-drilled holes. There should be 4 altogether, and just make sure it's pushed back far enough so you can see the light on the outside. It shouldn't be leaning out, covering the light. You want it back. So guys, now at this point, the electrical box side, I know everything works. I'm just going to put this under the bench. I'm going to screw it to the wall. That will stay there. Now this one we are just building for reference. You're going to want to find a hole saw or wall drill that is bigger than the diameter of your 120 plug-in. With that, you'll drill at the back wall, run this plug out the back. That's when I would then drill this to the wall under here, and then you can put your bracing on the bottom. That way your plug-ins already ran out the outside. Once you've confirmed that your wires are all in the slot that they're supposed to be in, you can go ahead and screw these into the wall, again using the 1.5" screws. Okay guys, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and put the gables on. This is a protective end that is also a nice trim piece. They'll go around the outside of your sauna on either end. There is 2 long pieces and 2 short pieces. The sauna is wider than it is tall. So your long pieces are gonna go up on the top and down on the bottom, and your shorter pieces are gonna go on both sides. With these gable pieces, your aiming is roughly about 1/4 inch on the backside that's overhanging. You'll see that the screw holes are already pre-drilled for these, and all you're gonna do is pop them directly in. You can use the 2.5" screws again for these ones. And then you're gonna just, with your long piece that's running across the center, make sure your holes are on the same side as the small ones. They should be closer to the bottom than they are to the top. If they're not, flip that around. And you're just gonna follow the same pattern around. Okay guys, so depending on the model you get, the straps, you may have 2, you may have 3, but this is how it goes together. So basically you have the 2 straps, you get them together. You're then gonna put a washer. Once the washer is on, you're putting a spacer. Once that spacer is on, you're then going to put your hex nut. And at this point, you would run the strap to cover the screw heads that you've already installed. So once you get that nice and tight, this is where you'll utilize the wrenches. You tighten that up. Once it's there, the 8-core nut is just for the very end. All that does is protect you from the sharp edge. More for visual, but that is the sequence for the strapping. Once you utilize your sauna for several heats, usually a month, maybe 10 heats, what's gonna happen is the sauna is gonna expand, contract. You may have to tighten these one time, and usually that's it. Some customers have to tighten them twice, but we've never seen more than that. Okay guys, this is just a quick note for future maintenance. As your sauna is heating, expanding, contracting, all that fun stuff that happens in Canada or wherever else you guys bought these saunas, what's gonna happen is you'll start to see a little bit of a splittage where these gaps that they went together in will widen. All you're gonna do in that situation is you're gonna remove the same 2 screws that you put in earlier. You're gonna tighten the straps. That'll bring that back together. And then you're just gonna send these 2 screws home again. Same with the bottom, same on this side. Same goes for the front. Where the glass is, those same spots will start to open up over time. And whenever they do that, again, just remove those screws, tighten the straps, and you're good to go. Your sauna is actually gonna come with several accessories as well. We have a hygrometer and a thermometer. This is gonna measure your temperature as well as your humidity. We also have a 15-minute sand timer. That way you can measure the actual length of your sauna. What we recommend for the thermometer is when you're sitting down, this should be at head level. So if I'm hanging on the wall, it should be roughly where your head is. Your head is your thermostat. And this is going to give you a real reference point to what the temperature is inside of your sauna. We recommend on the far side away from your heater. Heater will be on the back wall. Put this out by your glass wall. That will give you a real reference point for what the heat is. With the sand timer, it can be anywhere you want. So it's somewhere that's easily accessible. Again, as you screw it onto the wall, you're going to be able to flip. The last thing is just your coat hook. This is for your sauna hats, coat hooks. Recommend it on the outside. Some people put it on the outside of their sauna. I like to put it on the inside. That way my clothes stay nice and warm as I'm in the sauna. So when I get out, I have a nice warmed up clothes. So one of the other things that we do is now every time we sell a sauna, it comes with one of our new sauna cleaners. So these are straight from Harvia, one of the best countries in the entirety of the world when it comes to sauna. What we have here is the sauna cleanser. This is going to be utilized as a mild detergent for the entirety of the inside. If you're using these by yourself, we recommend you sit in the towel. That way it doesn't kind of get into the wood. If you're using these for a commercial purpose, you know that there's people going to be sitting without towels. This is a nice cleaner, nice and mild to get rid of the smell or any of the mildew that will start based off those. Secondly, we have the paraffin oil. This is basically a coater. This is going to go on your Western Red clear cedar on the inside only. This is basically for longevity. So you're going to clean and then you're going to use your paraffin wax. This should be done when you first purchase the sauna. Usually what we'll recommend is to do a small patch somewhere that's not visible, just to make sure that there's no differential in staining, anything that you don't really enjoy. This is done once a year, roughly. Some people go for 3 or 4 years without, but this is to seal the inside of your wood. We also have our sauna heater cleanser. Your sauna heater is mostly going to be stainless steel. It's really, really good with the heat. That's why we recommend those ones. All this is going to do is take the tarnish off of that stainless, give it a like new type of look. Again, you'll be using these ones. It'll be part of the package. And lastly, we're just going to send you some of the spray for the glass with the glass cleaner, same as the one you've always used. It's just to keep your front nice, clean, being able to see through, being able to see in. Okay, guys. That's everything. Your XL sauna is now ready to go. The next step is you get your certified electrician to come in, wire up your heater. Whether you go with a Harvia, a Hume, any one of our products, they need to be installed by a certified electrician. Once that's done, you're ready to enjoy your sauna.